The rain came down in sheets, blurring everything around Nathan as he drove through the storm. His son Leo, in the back seat, unaware of the weight Nathan carried on his shoulders. His tired eyes flicked between the road and the rearview mirror. Nathan's mind was preoccupied with the financial stress, bills piling up, and the constant struggle of being a single dad. Life had felt like a never-ending uphill battle. In the middle of it all, Nathan's gaze shifted to the side of the road. A figure caught his eye. A woman was sitting alone at a bus stop, drenched from head to toe. The storm was relentless, and yet she sat motionless, a white cane resting on her lap. Nathan's heart skipped a beat. Something about her presence, so still, so alone, was unsettling. His fingers gripped the steering wheel tightly as his mind raced. There was something about her that felt different, something he couldn't shake. She wasn't just an ordinary woman stranded by the rain. No, this felt deeper. His son's voice broke through his thoughts. "Dad, should we help her?" Nathan looked at Leo in the rearview mirror, seeing the innocence in his eyes. His son's simple question made him hesitate. He was already juggling so many things. What could one more problem possibly add to the chaos? But that feeling, the one that wouldn't let him ignore her, pulled at him. He couldn't just drive by. "Maybe we should," Nathan said softly, his voice more to himself than to Leo. He felt an overwhelming urge to help. With a sigh, he slowed the car down and steered it toward the curb. Nathan stepped out into the storm, his clothes immediately soaked by the relentless rain. His boots splashed through puddles as he made his way toward the woman. She didn't seem to notice him approaching, her head tilted slightly downward. Her cane rested across her lap, the tip of it slightly tapping the ground as if she were waiting for something. "Excuse me, are you okay?" Nathan's voice cut through the noise of the rain, gentle but firm. For a moment, the woman didn't respond. She sat still, her body rigid, almost lifeless. Nathan's gaze softened as he wondered what kind of pain had brought her to this point. After a long pause, she finally tilted her head slightly in his direction. "I'm fine," she said, her voice calm but distant. "Just waiting for the bus." Nathan raised an eyebrow, confused. He glanced around. The street was deserted, no bus in sight. "There's no bus coming, ma'am," Nathan said gently. "It's really storming. You shouldn't be out here alone." Her shoulders stiffened, but she didn't respond. Her head stayed tilted, her sightless eyes focused somewhere beyond him. "I'll give you a ride," Nathan offered, his voice softening. He felt a wave of sympathy for her. The storm wasn't letting up anytime soon. She hesitated, and for a moment Nathan thought she might refuse. Then, as if a weight lifted from her shoulders, she nodded slightly. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathan opened the door for her. She reached out hesitantly, her hand brushing against his arm as he helped her inside. The brief contact sent a shiver down his spine, but he quickly brushed it off. The rain continued to pound against the windows as he started the car, the sound deafening in the confined space. She sat beside him, her hands folded in her lap, her white cane resting between her knees. Nathan tried to steal glances at her, but she didn't seem to notice. "What's your name?" he asked, hoping to start a conversation. "Amanda," she replied after a long pause. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. Nathan nodded. "Where are you headed, Amanda?" She didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. I'm not sure anymore," she said finally, her voice tinged with something he couldn't place to spare. "Regret? I don't know where I'm going." Nathan's brow furrowed. He couldn't understand what she meant. People didn't just lose their way like that. "You don't have a place to stay?" "I had a home," Amanda replied, her voice soft, her fingers gripping the edge of her cane. "But not anymore." Nathan felt a strange pang of sympathy. "Do you want me to take you somewhere?" She seemed to stiffen at his offer, her body tense as if struggling with something internal. "I don't think it matters anymore." Her words hung in the air like a dense fog, and Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. It wasn't just her situation. There was something deeper. Something she wasn't telling him. His gaze flicked to the rearview mirror. He had the nagging sense that they were being watched, but when he glanced back, there was nothing there. Just the endless rain and the quiet hum of the engine. For a moment, the weight of her words settled on him, and an uncomfortable silence stretched on. Suddenly, Amanda broke the silence with a soft, almost inaudible whisper. "I've been running for so long," Nathan blinked, unsure of what she meant. "Running?" he asked, his voice unsure. She nodded slowly, turning her face slightly toward him. Her features, though soft, were marked with something dark, an emotion he couldn't quite place. "I'm running from them," Amanda said quietly, her voice trembling. "I can't outrun them anymore." Nathan's heartbeat quickened. "Who are you running from, Amanda?" Her hands gripped the seat tighter, and she seemed to shrink back into herself, as if bracing for an impact that had already arrived. "My family," she whispered, barely audible. "My own blood," Nathan's breath caught. His mind raced with confusion. Her family? Who could she possibly be running from within her own family? Before he could ask more, a flash of light appeared in the rearview mirror. His heart skipped a beat. A black van. It was tailing them, its headlights glaring through the rain like a predator closing in on its prey. Amanda's body stiffened beside him, her breath quickening. "They found me," she whispered, her voice shaking. "It's too late." Nathan's hands gripped the wheel, his mind spinning. His instincts kicked in and he slammed his foot down on the gas pedal. The tires screeched and the car lurched forward as he tried to outrun the van. But it wasn't long before the black vehicle was right behind them, its headlights shining directly into Nathan's rearview mirror, blinding him. "Who are they?" Nathan asked urgently, his voice tight with panic. Amanda's voice was low and filled with fear. "They won't stop until they've taken everything from me." Nathan's pulse raced as he maneuvered the car, trying to shake off the van. But it was relentless, following them through the storm. The rain hit the windshield with a deafening sound as Nathan's thoughts raced. What had he gotten himself into? The van continued to tail them, closing the distance with every second. Amanda's words kept echoing in Nathan's mind. Her family? What had they done to her? He had no idea who these people were, but he knew one thing for sure. They weren't just after her. They were after something much bigger. Something that involved him now. Something that would change his life forever. His foot pressed harder on the gas, but the van kept pace, and Nathan felt a cold sense of dread settle over him. The storm outside seemed to mirror the storm raging inside his mind. He was no longer in control of his fate. Amanda's secret was unraveling, and Nathan had no idea just how deep this tangled web went. But one thing was certain: he was in this now, and there was no turning back. The rain intensified, a relentless downpour that mirrored the confusion and chaos Nathan felt in his mind. His foot pressed harder on the accelerator, the engine roaring as he tried to lose the black van trailing them. The headlights from the van glared through the rearview mirror, cutting through the darkness like a predator closing in on its prey. Nathan's grip tightened on the wheel, his knuckles turning white. Beside him, Amanda sat still, her body tense, eyes focused ahead as if bracing for something she couldn't escape. The fear that radiated from her was palpable. She was no longer the calm, distant woman Nathan had initially picked up. She was terrified. And he couldn't shake the feeling that he was part of something far darker than he had imagined. "Who are they?" Nathan asked through gritted teeth, trying to keep his composure. His heart was racing, the adrenaline fueling his every thought. Amanda's voice trembled, barely a whisper against the roar of the storm outside. They're my family. My father's people. They've been chasing me for years." Her words were like a punch to Nathan's gut, but there was something more. Her family. Why was she running from them? What had they done to her? The van closed the distance, and Nathan's chest tightened with the pressure mounting on him. He couldn't shake the feeling that everything was spiraling out of his control. A sense of helplessness took root, gnawing at him. He was just trying to do a good deed, but this wasn't just a ride for a stranger. This was something bigger. Something that had now pulled him into a deadly game he wasn't prepared for. "Amanda, what happened?" Nathan's voice cracked, the rawness of his fear showing. His mind spun, trying to grasp the reality of what he was being told. "Why are they after you?" She turned her face toward him, the moonlight catching her pale skin, her eyes still distant, as if she had already accepted whatever was coming. "I know too much," she said quietly. "My father's business, his secrets, his sins. I found out the truth. And when I did, they took everything from me." Nathan's heart skipped a beat. "Took everything?" he repeated. "What do you mean?" Her hands, which had been gripping the seat, now trembled. The sound of the van's engine was deafening, and the intensity of the storm outside only added to the chaos of the moment. "They took my sight," Amanda whispered. Her voice cracked under the weight of the truth she had kept hidden for so long. "And they took my freedom." Nathan's eyes flicked to her for a moment before quickly returning to the road. He had never known someone could suffer so much, yet remain so composed. He could feel her pain, her anguish, but it was like a wall that she had built, unwilling to let anyone get too close. "Your sight?" Nathan asked, his mind reeling. "You were ... Amanda nodded, her face unreadable in the dim light. "It wasn't an accident. It wasn't just bad luck. They did it to me. My father, he needed to silence me, to keep me from telling anyone what I had discovered." The words hit Nathan like a ton of bricks. He was speechless for a moment, struggling to comprehend what she had just said. Her father, her own family, had blinded her to keep her quiet? His chest tightened with anger, a deep, visceral reaction. The idea that anyone, let alone a father, could do this to his own daughter was incomprehensible. And yet, here she was, sitting beside him, a woman who had been betrayed by the people closest to her. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Nathan asked, his voice almost pleading. "Why didn't you trust me?" She looked at him, her expression softer now, though the sorrow in her eyes was unmistakable. "I wanted to," she said. "But trust is a fragile thing, Nathan. I didn't know if you would believe me. If I told you everything, you might turn away." The van was still there, its headlights like a looming presence, a constant reminder of the danger they were in. Nathan glanced at Amanda, his emotions swirling. He could feel the weight of her betrayal, but not from her. From the people who had done this to her, from the life that had led her to this moment. "You should have trusted me," Nathan whispered, his words filled with a mixture of regret and longing. He wanted to protect her, to make everything right, but there was a part of him that was still uncertain. They were strangers, yet their connection in this moment was undeniable, and that scared him. Scared him because he had so much to lose. But more than that, it scared him because he knew that whatever was coming, he couldn't run away from it now. He gripped the wheel tighter, feeling the pull of the night closing in on him. The van behind them was growing closer, and the streetlights ahead seemed to blur as the rain intensified. The adrenaline kept Nathan focused, but deep down, a sinking feeling gnawed at him. The pieces of Amanda's story were starting to fit together, but there was something she hadn't told him yet. He could sense it, and then it happened. The van swerved in front of them, blocking their path. Nathan slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching against the wet road. The car lurched forward, and for a moment everything seemed to slow down. The van's door opened, and two figures stepped out, their faces hidden in the shadows. Nathan's heart pounded in his chest. This was it. This was the moment he had been dreading. The moment when everything changed. Amanda's body stiffened beside him. "They found us," she said, her voice barely audible, as if she had known this was coming. "They'll never stop." Nathan's mind raced. The van, the men, Amanda's secrets, it was all coming together in the worst possible way. But even then, as his life teetered on the edge of chaos, something inside him clicked. The resolve in his chest hardened, his fear turning into determination. This wasn't just about helping a stranger anymore. This was about something bigger, something that needed to be stopped. "I won't let them hurt you," Nathan said, his voice firm. But Amanda shook her head. "It's too late for that." Before Nathan could respond, the figures from the van started to approach the car. The air felt thick with tension, and everything slowed down again. In the chaos of the storm, Nathan could see the fear in Amanda's eyes, but it was paired with something else, something darker. She knew what was coming, but Nathan didn't, not yet. The two figures stepped closer, their movements deliberate, and Nathan could see the threat in their eyes. This wasn't just a random act of violence, this was personal. These men were part of the family Amanda was running from, and they weren't going to let her escape easily. Nathan's mind snapped into action. He reached for the door handle, his heart racing with adrenaline. He couldn't let them take her, couldn't let this be the end of her story, or his. He had come too far, had seen too much. But just before he could open the door, Amanda's hand stopped him. Her fingers closed around his wrist, her grip firm. "Don't," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Nathan froze, confusion swirling in his mind. What? You can't save me, Amanda said, her voice breaking. Not from them, not from this. A single tear slipped down her cheek, the only sign of emotion she had shown since they had met, but it was enough. It was all Nathan needed to see. He looked at her, his heart heavy with the weight of everything she had endured. I'm not leaving you, Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm not running. The sound of footsteps grew louder. Time was running out, and Nathan realized that the moment of truth had arrived. There was no turning back from this. Amanda turned her head to him, her eyes searching his face. Then you have to be ready, she whispered. Be ready for the truth. Nathan felt his stomach churn. Whatever truth she was talking about, whatever secrets she had yet to reveal, they were about to come crashing into his life. He wasn't ready for it, but he couldn't walk away. He couldn't let her face it alone. And as the figures from the van drew closer, Nathan made a decision. He would stand by Amanda, no matter the cost. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't yet understand, was just how deep this betrayal went. And how far Amanda's past would pull him into the darkness. This was only the beginning. The storm outside continued its fury, but inside the hospital room everything felt eerily still. Nathan's eyes fluttered open, his vision blurry at first, his head throbbing like a drumbeat in his skull. The white walls of the sterile room were almost blinding after the dark, storm-ridden night he had just lived through. His heart was racing, a sharp ache in his chest from the night's events. But what hit him most was the emptiness that seemed to have settled over his soul. He was alone. His first thought was of Leo, his son. He tried to sit up, but dizziness made him fall back against the pillows. A nurse entered the room, her voice distant but calming as she checked his vitals. "You're awake. How are you feeling?" she asked, her face a blur to Nathan's strained eyes. Nathan blinked and swallowed, struggling to regain his bearings. "Where's my son?" His voice was hoarse, filled with desperation. The nurse paused, her expression softening. "He's with your brother. They're both waiting for you outside." Nathan closed his eyes for a moment, his mind racing. Leo was safe. That was all that mattered for now. But what about Amanda? What had happened to her? His heart tightened as his mind replayed the chaos of the night, the van chasing them, the men who had stepped out, their threatening presence. Amanda, her name echoed through his mind like a mantra. She had looked at him with such fear in her eyes, but he had been so focused on saving her, so determined to help. He had failed her. A rush of guilt flooded him. How could he have been so naive? The moment she had gotten into his car, everything had shifted. He had thought he was just doing a good deed, helping someone in need, but that wasn't the reality. He had been pulled into something far deeper, something far darker than he had ever imagined. The door to his hospital room creaked open, and Nathan's brother David stepped inside, his face etched with concern. David was tall, with the same sharp jawline and dark eyes as Nathan, but there was a softness to him, a calm that Nathan had always envied. "You're awake," David said, walking over to the side of the bed. "How are you feeling?" Nathan couldn't meet his brother's gaze. He stared out the window at the rain, his mind clouded with turmoil. "I failed her." David raised an eyebrow, confusion clouding his features. "Who?" "Amanda?" Nathan's voice cracked as he spoke her name. "I couldn't protect her. I didn't know what I was getting into." David placed a hand on Nathan's shoulder, trying to offer comfort, but Nathan flinched at the touch. He wasn't sure if it was because of the pain or the overwhelming sense of failure that was clawing at him from the inside. "Amanda, the woman you picked up at the bus stop?" David's voice held a note of disbelief, and Nathan nodded without looking at him. "She's not who I thought she was," Nathan muttered, his hands gripping the hospital sheets as if they were the only thing anchoring him to reality. "She's not just some blind woman who needed help. Her family, her father, he's dangerous. They'd been chasing her for years." David looked at him, his expression shifting from confusion to concern. "Nathan, what are you saying?" Nathan closed his eyes, his mind replaying the fragments of Amanda's story, the pieces that had slowly fallen into place over the past few hours. "Her father," Nathan began, his voice low, trembling with emotion. "He's not just a businessman. He's involved in something something criminal. He's been using his own daughter as a pawn in his game." David remained silent, listening intently, though the shock was clear in his eyes. Nathan's heart felt heavy as the truth settled on his shoulders, a truth that felt like an unrelenting weight. He had trusted her with his own safety, his son's safety, and yet she had kept this from him. Do you understand what this means? Nathan's voice cracked as he turned to his brother, the grief in his eyes palpable. Her family, they did this to her, they took her sight. They took everything from her to silence her, and I walked right into it. David shook his head, disbelief still hanging in the air. But she never told you that. She didn't warn you. You didn't know, Nathan. Nathan's jaw clenched as he fought back the rising tide of anger. She should have trusted me. His voice was hoarse now, raw with emotion. She should have told me the truth. She should have let me help her. David sat down beside him, his face softening as he tried to comfort his brother. Nathan, you can't blame yourself for what happened. You didn't know. Nathan's eyes stung with unshed tears as the weight of the situation pressed down on him. But I should have known. I should have seen the signs. I should have seen the fear in her eyes when we first met. I should have known that it wasn't just a simple ride to help someone. It was a trap. I walked right into it. Flashbacks of their brief moments together flooded his mind. The way Amanda had looked at him when he offered her a ride, the way she had trusted him to help her, even when she couldn't fully trust him with her truth. But she hadn't trusted him. She had lied. She had hidden the truth about who she was, what her family was capable of. And now Nathan realized he had been nothing more than a pawn in their game too. The rage bubbled up inside him, rising like a tide he couldn't control. She lied to me, Nathan muttered, his voice thick with fury. She let me believe she was just some helpless woman. She let me get pulled into this. And now she's gone? And I can't fix it. David placed a hand on Nathan's arm, a calming gesture, but Nathan could feel the storm inside him growing. He needed to do something. He needed to make things right. The helplessness that had gripped him earlier had now turned into a burning desire for revenge. I'm going after her, Nathan said suddenly, his voice low and determined. David blinked in surprise. What do you mean? I'm going after Amanda, Nathan repeated, his eyes burning with resolve. Her father, her family, they can't get away with this. I won't let them hurt her any more than they already have. David's expression faltered, the concern creeping back onto his face. Nathan, you can't just rush into something like this. You're still recovering. You don't even know where she is. This is dangerous. Nathan's gaze hardened. I don't care. I have to find her. I have to make them pay for what they've done. The weight of the decision hung in the air between them, and Nathan could see the fear in David's eyes. His brother was worried about him, and Nathan understood why. What he was about to do was reckless, dangerous. But it was also the only thing that felt right. David exhaled slowly, his voice quiet. You're not alone in this, Nathan. You've got me. And if you're going after her, we'll figure this out together. The small comfort David offered wasn't enough to ease the storm inside Nathan, but it was something. It was a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't have to face this darkness alone. I won't stop until I find her, Nathan whispered, his voice low but firm. I owe it to her, to make things right, to show her that she wasn't alone, that she's not alone. As David stood up to leave, he paused and looked back at his brother. Be careful. You don't know what you're up against. Nathan nodded, his heart heavy but determined. I know, but I'll do whatever it takes. When David left the room, Nathan sat in the sterile hospital bed, his mind racing. He had made a decision, and nothing would stop him now. The anger, the grief, the betrayal, it was all afire inside him now, pushing him forward. He had been deceived, used, manipulated, but that would end. He would take control of this situation. He would find Amanda. And when he did, he would make sure her family paid for everything they had done to her. Nathan clenched his fists, a deep sadness in his chest, but also a resolve that he had never felt before. This was just the beginning. He was going after the people who had torn his life apart, and there would be no turning back. The night was heavy with regret as Nathan stood alone on the balcony of his apartment, the cold wind cutting through his jacket like a sharp knife. The city below him seemed distant, the hum of traffic and voices muffled by the weight of his thoughts. His eyes were fixed on the empty streets, but his mind was a whirlpool of confusion, rage, and sorrow. The events of the past few days had shattered him in ways he couldn't even begin to process. Amanda, her secrets, the lies, the betrayal. It had all unraveled so quickly, so violently, that Nathan hadn't had time to breathe, to think, to understand what had just happened. He was no longer just a man who had wanted to help a woman in need. No, he was tangled in something far darker, something he had no control over, no understanding of. Nathan's breath was shallow, his body rigid with the weight of the decision he had made. It had been 3 days since he had spoken to David, his brother, and since then, the silence had only deepened the ache in his chest. His thoughts spiraled endlessly, each passing second adding more fuel to the fire burning inside him. He was determined to find Amanda, to make things right. But how could he? How could he fix something so broken when he himself was so lost? She lied to me, he thought bitterly. She let me believe I was helping her, let me believe I was the hero. A sense of betrayal twisted in his gut. He had been so certain of his role in this story. The knight in shining armor, the protector of the helpless, but Amanda hadn't been helpless. She had been running from something far greater than him. And in the process, she had dragged him into the mess that was her life, her dangerous, twisted life. And worse, she had used him. The anger boiled inside him, suffocating him as he leaned on the railing, staring at the dark sky. The truth was too much to bear. His heart felt heavy, weighed down by the realization that he had been a pawn. He had trusted her with his emotions, with his son's safety, and she had used that trust like a weapon. Memories of their time together flashed before his eyes, Amanda sitting quietly in the passenger seat of his car. The rain streaming down the windows, her soft voice telling him her story. He remembered the way her fingers trembled when she had spoken of her family, the way her face had softened when she mentioned her father. He had believed it all without question. The anger flared again. He had given her everything, and she had taken it. Her trust, her vulnerability, it had all been a lie? Amanda had made him feel like a fool, like a man who had been taken in by a beautiful mask. A mask that hid a woman capable of betraying him, of deceiving him in ways he couldn't even begin to understand. But there was a part of him that still couldn't let go. It was the part of him that had believed in her, that had believed she was the victim. It was the part of him that wanted to protect her, even now. The part that kept telling him that maybe, just maybe, she hadn't meant to hurt him. But the more Nathan thought about it, the more the doubt crept in. Did she mean to hurt me? Or was she simply too caught up in her own tangled web to even consider what she had done to him? His chest tightened as a memory surfaced. A moment from their first encounter that he had overlooked at the time. She had been so calm, so collected, sitting in the rain, waiting for the bus. She had looked at him with such a quiet intensity, almost as if she had known he would stop. Almost as if she had been expecting him all along. Did she know I would be the one to help her? Nathan's mind raced, the pieces of the puzzle slowly coming together. The more he thought about it, the more it seemed like everything had been a setup. The way she had let him into her life so easily, the way she had manipulated his sense of justice, his need to protect the vulnerable. It had all been calculated. Nathan let out a bitter laugh, the sound hollow and devoid of humor. I wasn't the hero. I was just another pawn in her game. The rage that had simmered beneath the surface for days finally erupted, flooding Nathan's chest with heat. He had been so damn naive, so willing to believe the story she had fed him. But now, as the truth settled over him like a cold, suffocating blanket, he realized the depth of his mistake. And yet, something stopped him. A small, flickering ember of doubt still burned inside him. He could feel it now, buried beneath the anger and betrayal. What if she was telling the truth? What if she had been running from something far worse than he could imagine? What if her father's manipulation, his control over her, had driven her to do things she never wanted to do? Nathan gripped the railing tighter, his fists clenching. No, she lied. She knew what she was doing. She used me. His thoughts turned inward, the anger slowly giving way to sorrow. He had trusted her. He had trusted someone who was no different from the people who had destroyed her, the people who had made her into a liar. And the worst part was that he had let her manipulate him into believing that he was part of her redemption, that he could save her. But Nathan wasn't sure anymore. The more he thought about it, the more it seemed like he had been part of her plan all along. She had made him feel needed, made him believe that he was her savior, and now he couldn't even trust his own instincts. He closed his eyes, leaning his forehead against the cool metal of the balcony. The cold air washed over him, but it didn't numb the pain gnawing at his insides. He had given her everything, and she had taken it all without a second thought. The silence of the city around him seemed to reflect the emptiness in his heart. For the first time in days, Nathan felt the weight of the loneliness he had been avoiding. He had lost Amanda, and with her he had lost himself. The man who had tried so hard to be the hero, to be the good guy, was now just another victim in a game he didn't understand. But even in the midst of the darkness, a flicker of resolve began to burn within him. This wasn't the end. No, this was just the beginning. Amanda had betrayed him, but that didn't mean he was finished. He had been wronged. He had been made a fool of. And now it was time for him to take control. The anger that had consumed him slowly morphed into something else. It wasn't just rage anymore. It was determination. The kind of determination that came from knowing exactly what he had to do. He wasn't going to let this go. He wasn't going to let Amanda's family get away with what they had done. He was going to find the truth, even if it meant tearing apart the life he had known. Nathan turned away from the railing, his mind now focused on the next steps. He would find her. He would uncover the secrets she had hidden from him. And when he did, he would make sure her family paid for the damage they had caused. But even as he set the plan in motion, a part of him wondered if he could ever truly escape the hurt she had caused. If he could ever truly forgive her for the betrayal that had shattered everything. As he walked back into the apartment, he couldn't shake the feeling that the man he had once been was gone. In his place stood someone else, someone determined, someone angry. But no matter how hard he tried to bury it, a small part of him still cared for Amanda. A part of him still wanted to believe that there was a reason for her lies, that maybe, just maybe, she hadn't meant to hurt him. But in the end, it didn't matter. He had made his decision, the hunt was on, and the consequences would be felt by everyone.